I think it's a really important concept to work on each year as a business as to what other businesses can help us market our business for us. Because it's a brilliant way of adding value to other people's businesses as well as them doing their marketing for you. So it's a win-win situation when you find the right firms to work through the partnership playbook principle. And so that's why it's one of the Kaizen constant meetings, because each year we want to rethink about this concept and think, okay, how can we do this better? How can we find different people to work with? How can we find better ways to work with them? How can we work with the existing partnerships better? And so it's a really brilliant concept to come back to once a year. Um, and the example that I've been using, which I don't think you guys have, other than Bavik, have heard me talk about, is
Mhm.
when Coldplay released their latest album, they had a single on there called We Pray. And on that, the first version of We Pray, they had Guy singing um, uh, with an African voice. I can't remember what his name is, and I stupidly haven't made a note of it. And then also Little Sims rapping with it. And then they released, and so basically what you've got there is you've got three different bands with, or three different artists with three different audiences. They're coming together to make one single, but they're then exposing themselves to the audiences of the two other artists. So it makes for a better piece of creative content, but also everyone is getting more exposure to new audiences. But then Coldplay took it a step further, and I'm sure they only recorded their piece once. But they then did a version with Teeny, who did a Spanish rap within it. They did another version after that with Eliana, who did a piece in Arabic, and they had twice doing a piece in Korean. So they actually ended up with three or four different versions of this song, all being released to different audiences and exposed to different audiences. So when we bring different businesses together, they get exposure to the other person's audience, which means they do their marketing for them, but they also add value to but to their own offering by partnering with those firms. So it's a really brilliant principle. And it's a principle that Steve Jobs understood incredibly well, because when he was designing the new offices for Pixar, once they had gone through the IPO after the success of Toy Story, he could have created this sort of really kind of operationally functional building where they had multiple different areas for like toilets and mail drops and cafe and coffee, etc. But he didn't. He created one big atrium for the whole building, so everyone had to go in there to get their drinks, their mail, go to the toilet, and guess what happens? People bump into each other. People have got the same motivation and same drive and same purpose, but they all have a different role within that. And when the guy from marketing is stood next to the guy in from animation, and stood there in the queue for the water cooler, then those conversations, they have the same objective, but they have a very different role in getting to that objective. And Steve Jobs said that ideas have sex, because when those different people have a different perspective on the same objective, then that's where the magic starts to happen. And that's what we're trying to do by building partnerships with other businesses that share our clients but aren't in competition with us. They have the same objective, but uh, but they come at it from a different perspective. And in the financial services world, historically, what would have happened is you would have the client in the middle, and that client would have a solicitor, an accountant, a financial advisor, and they'd be getting different advice from each of those sources. And then the client's stuck in the middle, and they're kind of like, oh, do I follow that advice or do I follow this advice? And it actually makes their life more difficult, and they're paying for the expertise of three different people. And so we started saying to clients and their professionals, look, actually, if we team up with your solicitor and your accountant, we can deliver a better proposition to you, because you get the expertise of all of us combined, and if all of us agree, if all three of your trusted advisors agree, we know, you'll know that that's going to be the best thing to do going forward, isn't it? So it works better for the client. The client is happier, but What then is better for the three partnering firms is that they've all got the same ideal clients, aren't in competition with each other, and they can start introducing each other to other clients. And it works brilliantly. But one firm of accountants that we dealt with that was a six partner firm, so not particularly big firm. In the first 18 months of working with them, they by introducing us to their clients, we generated an additional £288,000 worth of revenue. Obviously, we had to do the financial planning, so there was work involved for us. They got an additional £72,000 worth of revenue, and they did nothing but introduce us. They got 8 referrals back from us. We got 30 referrals from them. We're doing less marketing, so we're happy. Their own accountancy fees were rising with the clients that we were helping because the work that we were doing was generating more work for the accountants, and they had happier clients. So it really is a win-win situation. And so when I thought about, well, what does the partnership playbook look like? What are the steps? Because what ends up happening is you end up meeting a lot of accountants and I met a lot of accountants and solicitors, and occasionally you'd meet one and you go, no, this is definitely never going to work. There's no point in taking this any further. And occasionally you'd meet one, you'd get on really well, they'd start sending you clients really quickly because they completely got it and they were completely motivated. And those ones they're just really easy. But about 80% say that they're going to give you referrals, they say that they're going to partner with you, and then nothing ever happens. And so, how do you convert those 80% into ones like the top 10% that just get it? And that's kind of where we need to take the partnership playbook. And the first way that we need to do that is we need to really understand what motivates the person, the partner, the potential partner when we meet them. What is motivating them to to work with you? And really, the best way you can do that is to ask. I know it's really boring and really straightforward, but you just got to ask. And I've told the story before about why Gaza never signed for Manchester United because Sir Alex Ferguson didn't ask the question. He basically just assumed he knew what Gaza wanted and he tried to sign him on that basis. And he failed, and Gaza signed for Spurs because actually what Gaza wanted was a house in Sunderland for his mum. So the best way you can ask this question and the best way to start any meeting with any new potential partner is if we were sitting here a year from now, what's got to have happened for you to be happy with the progress you've made? And once you've kind of exhausted that part of the conversation, you can add on to it, what concerns have you got at the moment that you'd like to have overcome? And what opportunities have you got that you'd like to maximize? Because if you really get to the bottom of that question, then you can show them how partnering with your firm is going to help them move towards what they've just told you is their primary goals. So it's a really brilliant way to build out the understanding. Because if you can find, for example, I remember meeting an accountant that said he wants to sell 3 years later, and I was like, okay, brilliant. So if we can make your existing clients more profitable and higher retention, would that increase the sale value? Absolutely. Okay, great. Well, that's what we can do by doing, delivering a financial planning arm for your business. Now, one question that I always bring up brought up in that first meeting is, do they want to split the fees? There's got to be, you've got to realize that for this to work, there's got to be something in it for both parties. Now, sometimes that's a straightforward split of fees. Sometimes one firm will only be able to send clients to the other firm and not the other way around, and therefore splitting fees probably makes sense. Some firms won't want it. Lawyers typically didn't want a fee share. Accountants always wanted a fee share. So you've got to work out what's right, but you've got to make sure that there's a win-win arrangement, because otherwise what will happen is a year down the line, all the referrals have flowed one way and not the other, and that person will lose interest because they're like, I'm not getting anything back. Absolute minimum. So if, for example, a lawyer said, no, I just want to give you the clients, I don't want anything back for it, absolute minimum, I'd be taking them out to a day at the cricket, a day at, a nice evening meal or something like that as a way of thanking them, because there's got to be something going both ways. Otherwise, it will fizzle out. The next thing to do is to think about how you articulate what it is that you do and who it is that you help. And this is where we talk about the elevator pitch and really nailing and knowing and being able to articulate your ideal client. Um, I think one of my best mates from school, it works in the banking sector. And for literally 25 years, I didn't have a clue what he did because every time he tried to explain it, he, I just couldn't grasp what he meant. And then I was reading Flash Boys by Michael Lewis, and I happened to mention it to him, and he said, "Oh, you know that algorithm that he talks about in chapter one? I wrote that." I was like, "Oh, brilliant!" Now, after 25 years, I now actually for the first time ever, understand what it is you do. And unfortunately, most people can't articulate what their ideal client looks like. If you haven't gone through the ideal client niche, I would encourage you to do that because it's really powerful. We had one guy that was in one of the workshops that Bavek was in, and he came out at the end of the ideal client niche part of the workshop, and he said, "I help rich old ladies." It's like, okay, that is a brilliant and easy and memorable way of communicating your ideal client. Because everyone at the moment in this room is thinking of a rich old lady that they know. And if they know any, they'll probably be interested, happy to introduce you to them. So the clearer, the more articulate you can be about who your ideal client is, it's going to massively help when you're speaking to partners. Because if you're not communicating in a way that a 5-year old could understand, then somebody that's not in your sector is not going to get it. I had a meeting with somebody recently and that's interested in joining the trusted team. I had to put it into ChatGPT and say, explain this description like a 5-year old before I could understand what on earth it was he did. So like, how on earth can a potential partner or client understand that? So you've got to get really clear at articulating that. And then you've also got to put together a pack so that when you meet a potential partner, you want to have a really brilliant presentation available. Because what will typically happen is you'll ask that opening question, you'll have about 25, 30, 40, 45-minute conversation. And eventually he'll be like, you need to tell me about what you do. It's all been about me. And at that point, and he'll have just been talking, he or she, and then you go, all right, okay, brilliant. Let me show you what I do. And you pull out a really professional looking presentation or brochure or whatever it is that you fits your model. And suddenly it positions you like, wow, this guy is prepared for this meeting. He's come in really knowing his stuff. Um, and now I've kind of talked for 45 minutes and I didn't have any of that. And you're not going to go through like a formal presentation, but you're just going to use the imagery to pick out the key points that are going to be the best way of demonstrating how partnering with your firm is going to help them achieve those goals that are important to them. And it's one of the reasons why having the real results roadmap really nailed down is so important. And of course, that should be in that presentation because that way you can explain to them how you take any of their clients from their current pain to their opportunity, to maximizing their opportunities. So of course, we've been through this with when we did the real results roadmap, and so you've got a couple of examples there. And within that, it's also like you've got to be able to communicate really clearly what your ideal clients are. And so any tools that you can use to help you do that is obviously a good thing. So for example, when we had a book for each of our ideal clients, we say, well, look, we've got this book for that ideal client, that book for that ideal client. If you've got one ideal client, having that one book just kind of clearly, it just really cements it into their mind. Wow, this is the guy, if I'm handing them a book, The Dream Retirement, this is the guy that helps people in the lead up to retirement. It's really clear in communicating what it is we're looking for and who it is we can help the most. The next thing is about recognition because people aren't going to do this stuff if there's nothing in it for them. So one of the things that we do at the Hub and Spoke is we try and get the cafe staff to give stuff away for free. Like if it's cakes that are going to be thrown away later on in by the end of the day, it's like, well, give it out to stuff, give it out to people, because the staff will look good, the cafe looks good, they're more likely to get tips, the people are more likely to try a cake they wouldn't have had before and come back for more. It's just a really great way of incentivizing people to look good in front of other people. And so, how can you make your potential partner look good in front of their clients? That's a question you need to ask yourself. Because if you're going to make them look good in front of their client, when they talk about you, they're much more likely to talk about you. So, for example, at our first meeting with a client, we would typically charge £250 for. But if we were introducing if an introducer like a professional partnership was booking that meeting for us, then they'd get that client meeting for free. So in other words, they could sit in front of the client saying, look, you can have a 90-minute meeting with a full, chartered financial planner. Normally it costs £250, but because I'm referring you, it's free. That makes me look good in front of my client, therefore I'm much more likely to offer it. You might also say, here's a copy of a book. I'm going to give you a book to help guide you through retirement. It's making me look good at gifting that, Mr. Accountant is making a gift to his client. That creates reciprocity. The clients are grateful for that. But what's he doing is we're giving him the books to give away. So we're making him look good in front of his client. So anything that we can do to make them look good in front of their client, that's a low cost thing. So something they can give away as many times as they like. Like I said, a free meeting, free copy of the book, anything along those lines is really powerful. Then what you've got to do is you've got to track how the progress it works with the partnership. So obviously we went through the successful business scorecard at a recent workshop, so I'm not going to go through that. Or just as a reminder, I told you the story of the American friend of mine that couldn't read the cricket scoreboard, and if you don't know the score, you don't know who's winning or losing. So it's really important that you track this stuff. So just do it on their behalf. Take over that for them and say, look, I'm going to keep a tracker so that we know exactly what's going on between our firms, and you can just kind of update it as is needed. So that you definitely want to be tracking the leads that you get through your successful business scorecard, but you also want to be setting up a referral register so that you've got a very uh, clearly identified, every client that came in, I know which source it's from. Now, of course, this could be through your CRM system or whatever. That probably is the better way to do it. But as a minimum, it should be a spreadsheet that says we got this introduction from this person, and they fall into this category of, accountant, referral, etc. So just track it. And for those of you that work in professional services, you may want to look at the RQ software, because it's a great way of managing those relationships, both from a how's it all going and who did I refer to who point of view, but also from a compliance point of view. It's a really great way of dealing with the compliance of referring clients between firms. Um, then you really want to nurture these relationships. You've got to, like, some of the time it's just because people get busy and they mean well, they want to refer people and they're able to refer people, but they're just busy doing other things. So then you've got to really nurture it. And like Louise mentioned, who went from breakfast sofa to Team GB triathlete by small increments. That's the way to work with a professional partnership. It's about creating constant nudges and constant improvements so that they follow you on the journey and they do refer you to people when they get the chance. And the way that we can do that is that there's four ways that we can do that, the four C's. Um, and so what you can do is you can send them content. So you might send them a newsletter. You might send them a weekly newsletter or whatever it is to keep them in the loop as to what's going on. You might want to collaborate on events. Do joint seminars, golf days, webinars, all of that sort of stuff is a brilliant way of doing it. You want to connect them. You want to connect with them. And that could be through playing golf, through cricket, or whatever, anything like that. There's an opportunity to spend time building that connection. And then finally, you want to offer them the opportunity to basically consult. So we would go in, as an example of that, we would go in once a quarter and we would chat to the partners in the firm and we'd tell them, well, these are the ways that we've been helping clients lately. Just use them as a case study and then tease out those, oh, well, I know, that would apply to Mr. Smith. I could introduce you to him. So quarterly hot topics. We would also do that actually by, okay, it sort of probably falls under content rather than consult. We would send them a month, once we set up a new partner, we would send them a sequence of a video email once a month. And each one of those was on a different topic, like explaining a lifetime cash flow forecast, or this is how we help clients with trust planning, or just kind of a 5 minute explanation, just as a really nice way of kind of educating them, but also bringing an awareness into that you can help a particular client and prompting their thought process. I've mentioned our Friday footnotes newsletter, hoping you all get that. But a newsletter is such a great way to do this. You're just sending them regular content, but just make sure it's valuable to them so that they do open it. Um, then you've got to make it really easy. The reason that Shopify has gone to become a huge business is because they've made online shopping frictionless, and you've got to make it really, really easy. So we would say, look, if you've got somebody that's thinking about retirement, you can send them an invite to our dream retirement dinner that we do once a quarter. You can send them our 2 minute retirement plan, which is our online quiz funnel. You can send them a copy of my book, The Dream Retirement. Whichever's easiest, we'll just give you those, and it makes them look good. But it's really easy to go, yeah, it's just one of those things that'll trigger everything else thereafter. Or just send them an introductory email. We'll take over from there. So we did the same with clients for inheritance tax planning, and we did the same with clients for that were entrepreneurial. And then finally, we want to build as much reciprocity in as possible. I've told you the story before of Ethiopia sending money to Mexico in their um, poorest hour, right in the midst of a famine, because of the fact that Mexico City 50 years prior had helped them gain independence, and they'd been waiting 50 years to be able to repay that favor. So reciprocity is an incredibly powerful principle, and it also has worked incredibly well for Hare Krishna Society, as giving books and roses allowed them to have far more and better conversations with people because of the power of reciprocity. So how can you create reciprocity with that partner? Well, the first thing you can do is you can gift them something like your book, or something nice, something that you've got, something branded maybe. So you can just make a gift there the first time you meet them or whatever, just again, create a bit of reciprocity. But then what you really want to be looking for is what you found, a low price thing that they can give away to their clients as many times as they possibly can. What you really want is a high value thing that you can give to just the partner or partners within that firm for free, that A, shows how brilliant you are, and B, creates huge reciprocity. So for us, the part of the process that we would give away for free is the efficient financial plan. We'd normally have charged £3,000 for that plan. So by giving them that £3,000 free plan, it creates massive reciprocity, but it also demonstrates how brilliant our financial plan is and why it's different to what they're currently getting from their financial planner. And it has the added advantage of saying, well, if they then end up choosing to become a client because our advice is better, or than the advice they're currently getting, they're then indoctrinated into that system. They're then getting their regular review updates and our webinars and all of that stuff that goes on top of, along with being a client, which means they're much more likely to refer their clients to you in the future. And when they do, what will inevitably happen is they'll say, oh, by the way, these are the people that look after my finances, which basically does all the selling you ever need to do, because the client then joins up with them. So what high value thing could you give to just the partner or partners that will create that reciprocity, demonstrate how brilliant you are, and have them kind of encapsulated into your ongoing service proposition? Of course, other ways you can do that are inviting them to your events, allowing them to connect with your audience. Um, whether that's inviting them to the golf day or the referral dinner that I've talked about that we used to do, those sorts of things are a brilliant way of creating reciprocity, which will have them wanting to reciprocate and send clients in your direction. So I suppose to summarize, what we need to do is we need to really get to the heart of the purpose, what motivates them and how can we use this partnership to get them closer to their goals. We've got to be able to really articulate who we help, how we help them, and why we are the right people to help them. Then we've got to be able to build up recognition to make them look good in front of their clients. We've got to provide the tracking system that keeps them monitoring, keeps you monitoring who's sending what referrals to who, how those are being dealt with, etc., etc. You've got to build a system that nurtures them, that's an automated system, so it's happening all the time to put you to the top of their inbox and to put you to the top of their mind. Make it really easy. Give them a really simple process. I forgot to mention it, but we would also send them a video that was specifically about efficient portfolio, but for the client, for the person that it was being introduced to. So therefore, the accountant could just like send that video to their clients. And I'm going to introduce Charlie. By the way, here's a short video that explains all about them. So that was just made it really easy for them. And then finally, create massive reciprocity so that they can't help but send you clients. And then you will have a brilliant partnership that works fantastically well. In summary, the way that we did that at Efficient Portfolio was we gave them a free copy or we gave their clients a free book and a free exploration meeting. We gave the partner a free financial plan. We did the quarterly hot topics, videos, and meetings, and we did joint events and invited them to our events. And then finally, to make all this work, just be the person that follows up. After you meet them for the first time, follow up with the actions that an email that says, this is what we said that we would do. This is me doing that immediately. I'm CCing in Charlotte, who's going to add you to our newsletter and send you a sequence of videos to explain how we help firms like yours and help your clients. Get it automated, find excuses to contact them, but also go to the effort of finding them a client. If you start the process off and show that you're willing to support their business by introducing to them to somebody, much more likely that they will again get that do the same back. So there we have it. That is the partnership playbook.